Welcome to Stepping on the Mat podcast, episode 003 with me, Aaron Martinez. Today we have a guest in the basement today, a high school wrestling coach, head coach at Norwalk High School, Jake Brown. Welcome, Jake.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for giving me something to listen to when I'm mowing the lawn and stuff. It's been pretty cool so far.
Right, I think that's like the evolution with podcasts now is like vodcasting, right? So like podcast is great because you can like listen to it when you're driving and everything, but like it's all also cool to be able to see the face to go with it. So I'm glad to see your face today. We had a little bit of a practice today, warming up and getting our bodies moving. So now we're gonna get on to some cool stories here. So could we just start us off and introduce yourself to everybody and tell us a little bit about how you got into wrestling and your origin of it?
Okay. Well, I'm Jake Brown from Solon, Iowa, so it's kind of by Iowa City-ish area. To be honest, it's just my older brother wrestled, so it was just kind of the next thing I did. He was going to tournaments and everything, so I think I was just the little brother who wanted to be like his older brother. So I started tagging along, and he was a little closer to age than me. My oldest brother actually was a pretty good basketball player in high school and stuff, so I went the other path. But had good success when I was in the youth level and stuff. So
And what age did you start at?
I was 5 years old right away going
to Iowa. It's Iowa breeding right there.
I was a kid crying, going on the mat, and then going out there and doing pretty well. But yeah, I was a nervous kid. So
yeah, it's a fun story where my mom, we were talking earlier about like my first wrestling experience, right? Yeah. And like my mom eventually said, she was like, well, I'm tired of taking pictures of you. You're always on your back. So like, I think I don't know if every kid starts that way, but you know,
I didn't, just because I was so used to just wrestling around with my brother and his friends. I mean, they were just kicking the crap out of me all the time, and my older cousins. So I think I was just like, I was so used to it. So
yeah,
you'd think I was getting beat all the time, how much I was crying before and after matches, but I did pretty well when I was younger.
So your brother started, and how much older is he than you?
He's 3 years older, so he was a senior when I was a freshman.
That's awesome. Whole house full of wrestlers.
Yeah,
little platoon size group.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So he kind of inspired you into it, and then when did you like kind of accept it as something that's your own?
Probably around 5th, 6th grade level ish. I mean, you do it for so long, it's just engraved in you, I guess. So it's just something you're known as the wrestler at the school. So right. I kind of enjoyed that, to be honest with you. And I didn't have a ton of my friends that were doing it with me to start, but by middle school, I kind of picked up with everybody. We had a lot of wrestlers in our age group. So I don't know. I don't really have a great answer for that, but it's just kind of who I was, I guess.
And what about like people you looked up to? Was there like the Michael Jordan of the world, like who inspired you at that age? Was there anybody that, high school wrestler or besides your brother, obviously?
My brother and his friends, honestly, I loved watching those guys compete. I was a wrestling nerd right away when I was in even like 5th, 6th grade. I knew who everybody was. I was the only kid probably on the predicament in 5th grade, knowing the rankings and everything on there. And TJ Bevins, he was a coach of mine. I used to love watching him wrestle when he was in high school, and he's quite a few years older than me, but there's a lot of the Solon era. I just loved watching those guys compete, and I wanted to be like those guys. I wanted to do it in our home gym like they did.
Yeah. So 5, and then you're going to about 4th grade, and you're starting to kind of pick it up on your own. So now we're moving into like middle school. What was that like? What was your experience like for middle school?
Had a lot of success in that era. I mean, I was a little old for my grade too, so I think that helps out a little bit. So 8th grade, I think I only lost 1 or 2 matches, and I wrestled a lot, and placed pretty high at AAU state, and did the Fargo thing. So I was old enough to do that when I was an 8th grader, and that was a cool experience. That was the only time I actually did freestyle state. It was when I was in 8th grade. So, because then you came into high school, and we were a really big football school, so. Kind of off-season wrestling didn't happen as much as I wish it would have now.
So you played football too? Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah. I did Pablo probably once a week when I was in high school, but for the most part, a lot of off-season stuff when I was an 8th grader. That's when I did a lot of my wrestling. But
Sure. What position did you play in football?
D-end and offensive tackle. So we were a small school that, you could play it both ways. And
yeah, I had a buddy when I was going to DMAC a long time ago, and he was like, you want to come up to our homecoming game? And I was like, yeah. I went to Des Moines Lincoln, so I was in a metro school, so I got 2,000 kids in my freshman class. and the game's going on, and I noticed how small everybody was for sure. You know, like even the sidelines were very short, and like they did the halftime show, and like some of the kids that were in the football on the football team like took shoulder pads off when they're in their pants out there playing the trumpet, and I was like, what's going on here? But I guess that's what small town schools are like. So small town Iowa also produces great wrestlers. So Salone, was that 2A or?
Yeah, we're 2A.
2A. Norwalk used to be 2A before. Is that right? When did they officially make the switch? I don't remember.
Oh my gosh, I just asked someone this the other day. So it's Thompson brothers graduated in 2000, so I think it was like 2004, 2005.
What made that switch? Do you know the history on that? Like what made the switch for Norwalk?
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, because I remember when I wrestled against Norwalk, that we'd see them at like the Ankeny tournament or something. They were a 2A school, so
I think it just any area. Metro area right now is just where they can throw houses in, they're throwing them in. So I think we're just going to get bigger and bigger now with Warrior Run getting sold, the golf course. I think they're just going to throw a ton of houses out there. So
dang,
we might be a bigger 4A school by the end of it. So.
Yeah, for sure. There's tons of houses going up here. So moving into high school, how did your high school experience go with wrestling?
A lot of coulda, shoulda, wouldas and stuff, but I mean, my experience was different. I tell the kids when I tell them I wrestled heavyweight, they're like, "Oh my gosh, what?" And like, "How big were you?" I was probably 205, 210 wrestling heavyweight. Our 215 pounder I couldn't beat him. He was James Morris. He was a stud wrestler, stud football player. Played linebacker at Iowa. Played in the NFL for a little while, and I mean he was the man. I wasn't ever close to beating him. I want to make that clear. So I wrestled heavyweight. Like I said, we were a big football school, so I wasn't cutting weight or anything, and I let nerves control me a lot, in big moments. And like I talked about earlier, I was a little wrestling nerd. I knew too much about every kid I was going to wrestle. Man, I beat this kid by 1, but this kid I'm going to wrestle, he beat that kid by 3. Like, it might be a tough one for me to win. I knew way too much about that stuff. I still, as a coach, know it, but luckily I don't have to go out there and perform. I can just
So what do you do now? I mean, what do you do now when the kid's like, I
try to hide my nerves with it a little bit. So
I've even seen Asaya be that way sometimes. As long as he's been doing jiu-jitsu and wrestling, he'd always like. I noticed he got to a certain age, and he started like talking about the other kid. And I'm like, they're talking about you. Why are you talking about them? So what do you do now, like as a coach, when you see kids kind of like getting in, because you can see it on their body posture and their language, just like they're sizing the kid up, but they're always seeing themselves as the kid that's lesser than the other kid.
I talk a lot about just like trying to do the right things. I mean, it sounds corny, but do the right things to the point where you have that confidence. You don't care who you're wrestling. If you go out there and you feel like you haven't done enough to be prepared for that moment, there's going to be that little bit of doubt in the back of your mind. And sometimes that can make you freeze. Sometimes that makes you more tired when you're out there. It's such a mental thing. And I always went through that. Like I really did. And especially the big moments. I mean, I can think about like senior year at districts and wrestleback. I lost a kid. I'd never lost this kid in my life. 4 or 5 times I beat him. I think I beat him 3 times that year. And then, get reversed to my back with like 10 seconds left. And he goes on places pretty high and just stuff like that. And I mean, if I didn't know who a kid was, some of my best wins were kids that were just so under the radar, and I didn't see him on those predicament rankings. My junior year, beat a kid by like 4, ended up winning 3A that year at heavyweight. It's Tyler Burrell, he's a pretty cool story. He had the long socks up to here, and he won every match at the state tournament in overtime, came in unranked, and had some pretty good wins my senior year of finalists in 1A, but these were guys that I didn't know who they were. But it's interesting that like even like some of my veteran friends and stuff like that, like when we get around sharing stories, people think that they're alone in these stories, right? But like whether it be a trauma, something that was traumatic for them, they really think that they're alone in those stories. But like they find if you just open up and talk a little bit, like somebody has a similar story to you. It might be the same, but it's super similar. Like I have a very similar story to yours, I think it'll be my sophomore year. The only person I had to beat was Matt Young. I didn't have to beat him. I knew I was going to have to see him in the finals, but I was not feeling well from cutting weight that day.
and I wrestled my first match, smoked that kid, and then I just was so depleted energy wise, and I wrestled a kid that I had tech falled and pinned during the year. Like he was like, I clowned him, and then I just didn't feel well, and I went to go take him down, and the referee called us out. And so my mind was instantly like stuck on that. And there was still 2 periods left to go, and I just didn't wrestle the rest of the match, and I had to cut the kid loose, and I lost.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, how did that happen? And I wrestled the kid in freestyle like a month later and pinned him, and it's just, but those are those stories, that we have those stories to, push us into when we hit those walls in life, they're parallel to these stories that we share together,
Yeah. Yeah. I try to use that, there's some, if you don't have that success, you think you could have had. Some people, maybe they don't want to be around the sport at all. I'm very okay with it. I think it makes me a better coach.
For sure.
I never want to put my kids in that situation where I want them to be most prepared as possible so they don't have to go through those letdowns,
Yeah. And I think might be a good topic we kind of like jump on now is like, I ask people this all the time. I'm like, do you know who Sugar Ray Leonard is? And everybody's like, yeah, I know Sugar Ray, right? I know that guy. And everybody's like, yeah, he's a great boxer. I was like, do you know he's a coach? And they're like, they kind of like do that. I don't know. I didn't know he coached. And I'm like, if you did know, like, who's some of his fighters? And then nobody can list them off to me. It's like, so does a person that's a coach have to have high accolades to be a good coach? Just like there's some athletes that aren't coachable.
Yeah.
Like what is your thoughts on, does a high school coach have to be an NCAA champion? Does he have to be a 4-time state champion? I
see it both ways. I could see that someone would be great with those accolades, and sometimes I've seen it firsthand that those people they're very set and, oh, this is how I used to do it, so you should do it like this. And they're set on that, and they can't see it any other way. And they also don't grow from it. Like I sure as heck know I'm not the best wrestler out there. I'm not the best technician. So I'm always watching things. I'm always learning from people, and I mean, it's going to sound, when I say I have a low ego, you talk about having a low ego, it sounds like you have an ego, but I'm I try to pull people in and to help our kids do things that that are better at me at certain things. There are a lot of things. Like if Coach Angle, he's one of our coaches, man, if he's in the room, I'm pretty much like, hey, here's a structure of practice, what I'd like. Here you go, man. Go take him through it. He's one of the best technicians I've ever been around. So it's like,
well, just like on an assault team, your team leader is not going to be like the guy up front breaching the door, blazing in the room. He's going to be over on this side of the room over here, just calling the shots and taking reports and making sure that people are moving in the right places. So
make sure everything's set up the way it needs to be. Everybody's prepared as much as possible. And
heck yeah. So speaking of being prepared, you had a long weekend of wrestling again. Yeah. So you just got done with the Freestyle State.
Yep.
So do you want to maybe tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, we had 4 guys go at Freestyle State yesterday. We had Dominic Tigner and Tate Turner wrestled juniors in the morning. And it's Freestyle State. There's not a lot of, there probably isn't any bad kids that are showing up to wrestle at those tournaments. So every match is, it's really exciting. And also, I mean, it's hard to win matches there. So Tate Turner, pinned a pretty good kid right away. I think state qualifier and might have been a place winner or blood round kid. So, started off really well and then ran into a couple tough kids or a finalist in 1A and then another place winner and lost that. But again, I told him, even if you would have came here and not won a match, you're still getting better than someone who was sitting at home doing God knows what. But
yeah.
And then Dominic had a really tough bracket. That 160 bracket was just loaded. And
I know he was contemplating whether he was going to go up or down.
Yeah, 170 was also very loaded. Those are just very. He's the young guy in the junior divisions. A lot of sophomores are wrestling 16U, but he's just a couple month difference where he's got to be with the junior group. And it is what it is. Those are the guys he's competed against all year, and had success with. And the 2 win, he went 2-2, and the 2 kids he beat were both state qualifiers this season and won matches at the state tournament. And he lost to a couple other tough kids, and that's how that went. But then 16U division, we had Harrison Tripp and Liam McLaughlin wrestle, and Harrison was a first-year wrestler this year, football player that I've been hounding to come out for wrestling. And
I'm glad you did.
yeah.
First year out, made the state tournament.
Mm-hmm. And won a match.
And won a
there.
match.
Yeah, I love telling
That's
people.
pumped. Man, I was pumped.
A lot of people don't do that. Like, they wrestle their whole life and don't do that. And you went and did that. Like, it's pretty cool. He's starting to love the sport a little bit. So, I mean, the fact that he went there and competed, and I mean, he wrestled one freestyle practice, and he's been on the mat, I think, twice.
Yeah.
Since season. So he was very out of wrestling shape. So, I mean, he competed well. He won a match there. And I mean, the other match.
He had a pretty big bracket too. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he had 10, 11 kids, which is, when I told him to wrestle, I was like, I bet you're going to have 5 kids there. You'll like qualify easy. But there wasn't only that, but it was like, I think 6 of the kids were state qualifiers in his bracket. Like, it was a tough bracket.
Man, you're going to cook through this thing to show up, grab your shoes. And he's like, coach.
And then I had to tell him first round, like, he's like, how good is this kid? I'm like, be honest. Like, yeah, like first round, he's got a state place winner. So
yeah,
but he competed well, scored on that kid.
Yeah, he does. I've never seen him back down from anybody throughout the season. He was like in people's faces, going after him.
He's a big, strong, athletic kid, and he's still undersized at 220. So I mean, even the matches he lost, I mean, he was scoring a lot of points. And if those matches, I mean, if they were minute 30, he would have won a lot of those matches on Saturday.
Yeah.
But anyway, he ended up placing it, which was cool for him. And I think he said he wants to do another one before it's over. He wants to go to last chance qualifier. And do that.
Yeah. So, where is the last chance qualifier at?
Ankeny.
Mm-hmm. Is Tigner going to do that one?
I don't know. We'll see. He wrestles and competes a lot. So
yeah.
If he's going to know that a few of us are going, and if he wants to jump on that train with us, we'll go. But break might not be a bad thing for him.
So how does that work? The last qualifier. So it's maybe you can explain to us just like how that works.
So freestyle state top 3 qualified for Fargo Nationals in North Dakota, and then the last chance qualifier is just it sounds like what it is, but it's just everybody who didn't qualify can show up, and if you are a qualifier, you cannot be at this tournament.
And you can't recompete in it, right?
And so you have to win your bracket. So they take first place. So do or die.
Yeah. And then Tyler Harper is already in, right?
Yep.
Now, how does that work? Like, because obviously he's not going in the same weight class as he did from last year, right?
Yeah. It doesn't even have to be the same age division too. He could be a 16U and then be a junior the next year, and he's still returning. So, nope, he's going to go. He wrestled 100 last year and placed 4th at Fargo Nationals, so which was a great tournament for him. And he's going to wrestle 113 this coming summer at Fargo. So we didn't wrestle at Freestyle State. I mean, he did not wrestle at Freestyle State. He needed, take a little time to.
Sure, and he doesn't have to though, right?
Correct. He's in. He's already in, and it's taking some time to get healthy and get bigger and stronger. And again, sometimes you wrestle so much, like competing. If you do it so much, it's just like you don't get up for it anymore, and it's just like another day. So I think you need to get that fire a little bit, get that back. And I'm starting to see it at practice. He's getting that fire a little bit back. So
yeah, I think a lot of athletes, especially like combat sports. There's a lot of pressure that goes into this. It's not like football. I don't think I ever got nervous playing football, to be honest with you. It's just like there's so many people around you that like even your little holes that you make in your game, it's rarely noticed. Maybe your dad might tell you, or your mom might be like, hey, you missed that tackle today. But other than that, there's so many people on the field that can fill in those gaps.
I've had this conversation with people. It's funny you say. Like I talked about, I get so nervous for like almost crippling fear that would freeze me when I'd wrestled football. Holy cow, I mean, I cared, but like zero nerves going into it. Probably because we had that James kid we talked about. I mean, we pretty much just threw him the ball and everybody else get out of the way. So, but yeah, I mean, I probably because obviously it's just that individual sport feeling. That's why I'll respect anybody that goes out there and competes on the wrestling mat. Take some stones to go out there and do that.
Yeah, and I it's like pressures. Like where does someone evaluate the pressures from? Is it coming from? Where's the source of the pressure coming from? That's the hard thing to find. Like we just did a jiu-jitsu tournament in Cedar Rapids 2 weeks ago, and I have my adults competing, and they're like normal adults. They're like, I call them my soccer moms, right? They're just like regular old ladies that train real hard, and they compete, and they're just like, overwhelmed with their nerves. And I'm like, you do this every day.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine I'm putting 5 minutes on the clock and I say go. I was like, all your nerves are going to go away as soon as that whistle blows, as soon as they say fight, as soon as you make contact with them, all that nerves are going to dump, and your instincts and your training is going to kick in.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so hard to tell people that. It's so hard to convince them that it's going to work.
It really is. I mean, like, sometimes it wears you out if you have to worry about it so much. I think I gas so much in matches. Like, I never would gas in practice. Like, kids watch. I mean, when I go run with the kids, like I'm slow, but I could run forever with them. But they I would gas because that lead up to matches, it just wears you out.
And I used to before my fights, I would like fall asleep,
mm-hmm.
and they'd be like, "Come on, hit mitts," and I just didn't want nobody to touch me.
Yeah,
I didn't even want nobody to touch me, and until I got to like a certain nerve, it would almost put me to sleep.
Yeah,
my nerves would get going so much that I would just like want to go into a deep sleep, and then I'd wake up, and then I'd be ready to hit mitts and start rolling around and getting ready to go.
I've heard of wrestlers that just, sleep until it's time to go, and I wish I could have had that, but I tell them, our kids get nervous too, and I try to tell them, hey, you're prepared. Like, luckily with a lot of our kids, they did, the off season stuff. So I'm like, not a lot of kids were doing that while we were doing this off season.
Yeah,
you're more ready than any of these kids. And also just like, I try to explain to them, being nervous, it's a normal thing.
Totally,
like,
totally
it's
natural.
Your body reacting. It's that fight or flight. Like it's your body telling you you're getting ready to go do something. So it's completely normal. Like, and it also shows it means something to you. So I try to explain to them the nerves are normal. So it's not, don't overthink your nerves. Like
right.
I sure as heck did. But
so, so we got Fargo coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to be going down to that?
I'm not sure yet. We'll see.
Well, let me know. I'm going. I'm heading that. Yeah, because I want to film for Tyler and Skylar. Nice. Yeah. So
I went a couple years ago. I did not go last year. I had a 1 month old, so that would have been.
Yeah, how's that going?
One.
What's it like being? It's your first kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's that like?
It's great. Wrestling wise, it's just there's certain things, but it's been great. It's been really fun to be a dad. So
walking yet?
Close. Yep.
Once they start, they take off.
Mm-hmm.
You got to like get at their eye level and start like, what do they see? You know, what can they bite? What can they get their hands on?
Oh, she's all over the place right now. She loves the TV remote. Maybe it means I watch too much TV, but she loves that.
That's awesome. Is she like got any like favorite cartoons or anything right now that she's really into? She loves
this thing my wife puts on, these dancing fruit and vegetables. Man, she can be locked in. Whenever she starts bawling, I don't know what to do. I'm just turning that on. So sometimes you got to just survive.
Is your wife? Was she play any sports or?
No, she was gymnastics growing up, but nothing besides that. She follows us. She loves watching our guys wrestle and everything, and when I hesitated when I was asked how it was with the kid, I'm very lucky to have her as my wife with everything, but especially coaching, because it hit me hard this weekend because the baby's getting older and more aware. Like when I was walking out the door for open match, she's watching me and crying. That one hurt, but because I'm gone so much, and especially, when season started, she was 4 months old and 5 months old, and I wasn't seeing her most nights because I'd leave early in the morning for training, and then I'd come home from practice, and she was probably asleep. So I'm very lucky that my wife's very supportive of.
For sure, for both you guys, yeah.
I've gotten to know the Thompson brothers kids a lot just because they're in the room a lot with us, and I get to see how they handle it and stuff. So we do a couple of camps in the summertime. My philosophy on camps, I've kind of shifted a little bit. People like to do the big camps and they go for 3 days and everything like that, and I'm not. I've done it before. Parents spend a lot of money on it, and I'm slowly progressing to something else where I try to. We do a couple dual camps where we go and compete. Like we're gonna go to Grandview, where we we do technique for an hour, and then we wrestle 5 duels, and then we go back to my old hometown in Solon. We'll wrestle 5 duels on the football field, and we'll stay the night and do a little training the next day at Cornell. But fortunately enough, I know enough people that just from my time in wrestling that I can get people to come in and run our open mats, and it can do clinics for us and all that stuff for free for our kids. So rather than and having our kids missing other sports, missing lifting to go do these camps, I can bring these people in. They're getting all that stuff just from our open mats in the summer. So that's just kind of what I tried something different last year. We went to ISU camp, and I don't want to talk too much about that, but in a bad way. But it wasn't.
So the Grandview camp, you said there's going to be it's like a clinic, and then it turns into like a
Dual
duels
tournament. Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we did it a couple years ago, and then they didn't do the team one last year, so they reached out to me again this year that they're back. So I was like, all right, heck yeah, let's go. So
Heck yeah, that's awesome. So is that Grandview's like the kids that are on the team that are running that camp, or
Yeah.
is there any special guests coming to that?
No, they'll run it. I think Grant Henderson does the technique. He's one of their coaches, and he was a really good wrestler.
Yeah, he graduated. Me and him graduated Grandview the same year, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And then he came on. I think he came on right afterwards.
That's Grant's Turner. Grant or the Turner. Are you talking about Turner?
Turner.
Grant Henderson's a young buck.
Yeah. He's got he shows up at all the tournaments, right?
Yeah.
These local ones, yeah.
Oh,
He graduated at Grandview.
okay.
Yeah.
When was that? Not too
That
long.
was like 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, because I
Okay.
remember I got out of the military,
Okay.
and then I got out in 2013, and I went to Grandview right after that. And
I guess I
graduated
didn't.
in
I guess
18.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I was the old man. People thought I was the teacher there.
That makes way more sense now. Okay.
They were
They
like-
got another coach who's, I think his name's Grant Turner, who helps. He's the Nike wrestling guy too. So I thought maybe you were talking about.
Yeah,
okay, that
yeah,
makes
yeah.
total sense. All right.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I'd go and I'd show up to class, and people thought I was like the teacher. I remember. I'll never forget this. We had like your like portfolio night, right? I'm just like, I'm already like, I'm not a little kid anymore. I'm ready to go
Yeah.
work, like, this lady comes up. She's like, so which class do you have my daughter in? I was like, nah, me and her in the same
we
class.
sit next to each other every day in class. Oh, good for you. I
Yeah.
couldn't imagine going back to school. Like, and I'm only 10 years out of college and everything. Kids come up. I'm an at-risk teacher at the high school in Norwalk, so I got kids. I try to help them with their stuff. So they'll come up and they'll bring me something. I don't remember that. I'm sorry. So
Yeah. Oh man, especially like when it comes to math.
math. I
Holy
can
moly.
I can BS my way through most things, but math, like they hand it to me, I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
It was rough.
Multiplication, I can handle that. That's about it.
They're always like, don't save your math until the end. Get it done early. I'm like, no, I'm not touching it.
Yep.
And like, I hadn't. They're like, when's the last time you did math? I was like sophomore in high school,
Yep.
man. I'm 40 years old,
Correct. It's that's the first thing that went from my mind is math. Like,
Yeah.
I can't do that. Mhm.
But they were good with me. The teachers were great and helped me get through that. So yeah, that was interesting going back at
Yeah.
that age,
Mhm.
trying to, I'm sure that you see in school, like just kids are just, they're not even paying attention. Most of the time they're on TikTok or
Yes.
snapping while they're in
Mhm.
class. So you work with at-risk kids at Norwalk. That's what you do there.
Mhm.
Tell me about that. Like how did that show up for you?
To be honest, I mean, when I took my job up here, it was just kind of like a secondary thing they had available. So I started doing that and honestly loved it because it's like, and people sometimes ask me, they're like, man, how do you work with those kids? And I'm like, I'm telling you what,
Who else is going to work with them?
that, and it's like, those kids show me more respect sometimes than the other good kids in the school that they're untouchable and a little entitled and a little spoiled. And I mean, we got a lot of good kids at Norwalk, so I'm not trying to downplay that, but some of those kids, when you're their person that the only person they kind of have in their life, like, and not only that,
Sure.
but this, my job I basically hang out with kids all day and I get paid. I build relationships and I get paid for it. It's such a fun job, honestly. And so those kids, I mean, they love you. Like they end up like family to you. So
that's awesome.
I've had so many good experiences with it, and
I think that's so
relationships I still
important.
have.
I think it's so important today to have like good mentors and teachers like you that are around. I think kids just, they struggle to find the right way to get attention.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's good to have people around like you to be able to catch them and scoop them up and just put a couple words or have an ear to lend them.
I try.
It's needed.
I try.
So, how are you feeling about, this next upcoming season, 23-24? What's your team looking like? I know you're losing Maddox.
Yeah.
and you're losing Donovan. So
we're losing some guys, but it's, and with every season, coming into my first year as head coach, I had some high expectations of all these guys, what they should do. Now it's kind of like I put some opportunities in front of them and give them a chance to show me that, So I try not to have high expectations, but we've got a pretty good group of kids that have been working hard, I believe, and I think the culture is really well of these kids. They want to get better. I've dealt with cultures in the past that were like these kids, they almost bring each other down sometimes.
Sure.
They're joking around, but they're, that sometimes it's not positive and it doesn't help. But these kids are, they're trying to get everybody around them better. I really do see that with this group. So I feel pretty good about where we're at. So
yeah, and when I interviewed you during the documentary, that was something you mentioned about Tyler Harper. Is he's just kind of he's that commander in the room.
Mm-hmm.
He's this small, quiet kid, but like he knows his place and his leadership. And you mentioned that he runs the first 20 minutes of practice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to have those kids that are vocal in the room and want to step up to that leadership.
They want to be like him.
Yeah.
Like he does that for me, that role, that vocal role. That's not who he is, but he does it for me because he knows I need it. But just kids, they see how he competes. They see how he is as a person. They follow along with it. I was talking about, I put out that tweet when Tyler won that big match at state that, this is, he didn't qualify for state the year before. This is the kind of stuff he was doing in the off season. It's me filming him shadow wrestling. He was mad I was filming him, but just that's because that's not how he is. But he was just shadow wrestling on the football field. It was like 6:45 in the morning. We started at 5:45. Like that's, kids heard that we were doing that. Like, well, why didn't you tell us? I'm like, all right, let's go. So other kids were following along. Your son was there with us running bleachers in the mornings, and they see him doing that. They're like, they want to do that. So
yeah, that's awesome because I believe that's leadership is contagious. It's like laziness, someone's being lazy in a room or someone's goofing off or horse playing. It's going to just like transfer to the next kid. But leadership can work the same way, just as long as someone's being vocal in the room and it's not always coming from the coach.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I try to bring my kids to do. My students is like, you be the leader. I shouldn't have to be the one like telling people to step up and get moving and go drill. You guys already know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So
sometimes it's better to hear it from someone else.
I'd rather have somebody that has that peer leadership versus coming from me, or
I was
coming
like Zay at open mat at the end when he was like, I'm gonna yell at these kids that they weren't there.
Yeah,
go do it, man.
That's all we were waiting for with Isaiah. He's like he's got natural leadership skills, but he kind of like he patiently waits for his turn.
Mm-hmm.
He'll look and be like, can I do it? Can I go? And then as soon as you give him the thumbs up, he'll run with it.
He will. I mean, I've kind of been on him a little bit about stuff to do that because that freshman group, he is the guy they look to.
Yeah.
And obviously this was before even he was a varsity guy for us and had a pretty good season. Like it was before that he was the guy they were looking to. So
yeah,
he's helpful with that. He does well.
So who else you got in this on your roster that you're looking forward to seeing compete this year?
So we got 7 state qualifiers coming back with Tyler Harper. Gosh, I'm gonna look bad. The camera's on me. I'm gonna forget everybody. But Tyler Harper, Aiden Moret, Tate Turner, Caden Borcherding Johnson, Dominic, Colton Borcherding Johnson, and I'm missing someone. Holy cow! Who am I missing?
Tripp.
Harrison Tripp, the big guy. We were just talking about him. I knew that was going to happen. So with those 7 guys coming back, like you feel good about that. And obviously your son, I'm excited to see where he's going to end up. He wrestled. He was a young buck, and he also gave up probably 10 pounds. So he still competed really well, and I'm excited to see where he's going to be at. Not only next year, but the next few years. And
yeah, I can't wait either. It's gonna be cool. It's gonna be a cool journey. You guys got a new wrestling room too.
Mm-hmm.
I know. You guys used to have the youth. When I was coaching with the youth team, that wrestling room was pretty good. But like the one you got now is very impressive.
Yeah. Sometimes I still look around and like, holy crap, we got 3 full mats. Like we're pretty lucky. And we need it with our numbers right now. Like if the numbers we had now and like in that room, it just wouldn't even be safe, which was Schmitz's biggest, argument to get that new room. Schmitz
Safety.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We had kids getting concussions, falling on each other and stuff in the room a few times. So
Yeah.
And that was what we preached. We try to get high numbers, and then you get these high numbers in this room.
Then
like
everybody,
that.
It's so big, everybody like still trains over in this one little spot.
Yeah, yeah. So it's been really nice. I mean, that's why it was nice to have. I mean, we hosted districts and conference this year, so I mean, to have that big room that these guys could go get away from a little bit. We can warm up in our big wrestling room and stuff. It was, we're lucky. We're lucky.
You guys are like, it's a great space. I'm glad that the school put that together and was able to get you guys a new room.
Mm-hmm.
And the new gym looks great.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, like you said, you hosted conference and districts there.
Yeah.
So it was good. I didn't have to travel.
Yeah, it was. And I thought that was two of our best tournaments too. Just so I'm definitely going to push to get districts at home again. This
I remember districts. Like, it still stands out in my head. I mean, I think Asaya got the first pin of the day,
mm-hmm.
and then it just became like every kid after that got a pin up until I don't even remember what weight it was.
My mom this is the first meet my mom's been to since I was in high school.
Oh,
she
wow.
came up and watched. Her and my uncle drove up a couple hours. So they had the number. My uncle, he hasn't watched wrestling in so long. He was like obsessed, but I think he said it was like we were on like a 15 match win streak or something.
It was like
that.
pin.
And there were big matches too. I mean, Asaya was 6 seed and pinned the 3 seed right away. And I got a story for you with that one if you want to hear.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, he was, he struggled with that Indianola kid. I'm trying to figure out how to get everybody through to stays any way I can. And I told you I'm a wrestling nerd.
Yeah. And I did the same thing. I said, you're gonna have to beat Dyer before you get through, right?
I was trying to make it so he didn't have to. So Asaya should have been the 5 seed. He had criteria over another guy,
mm-hmm.
but in my mind, I'm like, this is what's gonna happen. Asaya's gonna beat this Newton kid. We'll wrestle the Boone kid. And if it doesn't go our way, here's what's gonna happen on the backside. This Newton kid's pinned Dyer twice this year. Headlocks. Boom. He's got. I don't know what it is.
He's got his number. He's got his number. Yeah.
Yeah. So then Asaya was, constellation semis, those guys, and I looked over and that Newton kid was beating him. Got pinned with like a minute left. So I was pissed. But then Asaya came back and wrestled him as tough as he's ever wrestled him. I mean, he wasn't just like keeping it close or surviving. That's not how he is anyway. But
mm-hmm.
he was going after him. It was a really good match.
That was a good match
mm-hmm.
for sure. I was pretty happy with him that day.
Mm-hmm.
He went out and wrestled his butt off that day.
It's a big 13-pounder too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sai will get the size on him this year though.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't know if he'll wrestle that kid anymore.
Probably not.
He's gonna be pretty big.
Yeah, he'll be a big kid. It's good watching. I like watching. We were talking about rivals earlier, and kind of like you gotta like you shared your story, I shared mine. I beat this kid 2 or 3 times, and he beats me in the most important spot.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any rivals in high school or college that were like, or even when you was a kid that you like constantly had to wrestle?
I wrestled the same kid a lot, but it was not much of a rivalry because he used to just kick my butt all the time. But Austin Blythe from Williamsburg, I still tell the kids about that. I mean, I think I had like 8 losses my senior year, and he was like 5 or 6 of them. So I'm trying to think of some good rivalries. No one you guys would know, but I've traded matches back and forth with a lot of different kids, and sometimes that's up here. But
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it always sucks to have that kid you can't beat, but the memories with it,
mm-hmm.
they're great.
Yeah.
I remember like my best match and I remember my worst match. All the rest of it's kind of a blur in
mm-hmm. between.
So
very true.
And the loss is probably the one that motivates me more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
That happened 100 years ago, but it still shows up all the time. It makes me a better person. It makes me get up in the morning. It makes
mm-hmm.
me finish marathons. It makes me climb mountains.
Yeah.
So
people tell you forget those things. You never forget those.
Why?
Things. Yeah.
I love having those things,
mm-hmm.
like, people when they hit their wall, like I like really hard challenges. Like I said, I like to mountain climb and do like ultras and stuff like that. It's like, because I like to find that wall on myself. I like to find where my body wants to shut down or my mind wants to stop me from doing something. And I can get that extra step just to get going again. And that's stuff that lasts forever,
mm-hmm.
Even if it came from a loss.
I think that, yeah.
It ends up being a win in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
So So let's so we got a good season coming up for Norwalk 23-24, 7 state returners. Let's recap the last season then, the state tournament. You said you had the 7 guys and you had Tyler and Maddox wrestling in the finals.
Yeah.
2 kids from Norwalk in the finals.
Yeah, that was the first time we've had that since I think it was 1974. We had 2 kids in the finals at Norwalk, and then with Maddox winning it, that was the first champ in 30 years for Norwalk.
Yeah,
So.
the last champ was what, 2000 or 94?
Yeah, Dan
94.
Bierman.
Yeah.
Or it was either Horton or
Horton.
Bierman.
Horton.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't want to mess it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially if it was Bierman. I know Bierman pretty well, so I didn't want to mess it up for him. But Horton, I don't know. So sorry, Horton. But.
That's really cool to have that. I mean, that's you've been coaching at Norwalk for how long now?
This is my 8th or 9th year. Yeah, goes by fast.
And now you got a state champ.
Mm-hmm.
Got a
Felt
state
good.
champ and
I mean, it was
a runner up.
It was a relief, honestly, with Maddox winning it. It's weird to say, but
You'll enjoy the documentary. I got like a really great shot during Maddox's match because you coached. You didn't corner for Harper, but you cornered for Maddox, and I got this great shot of you and maybe a good photo to blow up sometime.
I bet, because it was just.
I could see the intensity in your face and just like
I wanted it for him so bad because, I mean, as an assistant, my thing was I'd always have a few guys, and those were my guys. Like what am I doing to get them better? And with Maddox, I spent a lot of time with Maddox trying to get him better. That's my first 2 years in the room. It was just me and Maddox in the corner, basically. So, you put in that much time with a kid, you want all your kids to win, but you got a little more with that. And then, junior, just his story, freshman year, losing in overtime in the semifinals, and then same thing as a sophomore, losing in overtime in the semifinals to the same kid, nationally ranked kid. And, that I don't want to say he was okay with it, but it wasn't like you were expecting to be the guy. And then last year, junior year, he lost that match in overtime, that Waukee kid who, that was one that's, he wishes he could have back. I wish, that was a tough one. And I was so mad at myself after it, just because I felt like I let Maddox just be in the room that year, just kind of exist. We were talking about it beforehand. He's kind of a slow walking, kind of a goofy kid, but he thrives when he's pushed. And I didn't push him that year, and it paid, it paid off. It paid in a bad way in that moment. So that was tough. That was when I got home, I got my demons out a little bit. My dog always wants to be near me. She didn't want to be near me that night. But yeah, so it was just a relief, because he's a good person anyway. So I really wanted it for him. And then, so yeah, it was awesome to see it and be there for it. So.
Yeah. I'm usually very disciplined when I'm filming. I don't like say stuff. I like stay quiet and make sure that the camera's rolling, but I was screaming. I was like, it kind of fits good good in the documentary, but I totally didn't do it during Harper's. I was like really locked in, disciplined, but it was like,
it's hard to keep
we're
it
10
in.
seconds away. Come on, screaming. And I just totally forgot I was filming, but it makes a good audio slice in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, and Maddox is going to be going to Iowa. He hung the shoes up. But he's going to keep the cleats.
Yep.
So
that was a cool moment too. We'd talked about that for so long, like that whole year. Like as soon as I win it, putting him down the middle. And the funny thing is, they weren't his shoes. His shoes got thrown away.
The decoys
in the locker room the week before. So actually, the year before, he ripped his shoes. He's got some big old monster feet. He just goes through shoes like crazy. And Jenny, oh man, God bless her soul. But so it's my Solon guys. They still coach there, so they brought up the only other people that had a size 16 shoe randomly. So he wore the same shoes junior, senior year. Borrowed them from a Solon kid, and then left him out on the mat. And then, I wanted to make sure the cameras were right. Went and grabbed him back.
Right.
So, but it's funny.
It's funny. Like you're talking about Jenny. She's like, I don't know. I read an article or something like that, and she was talking about how much, she's just got to feed those boys.
Mm-hmm.
3 of them,
Mm-hmm.
And they're all big kids.
I bet the smallest one is eating the most right now too. He's trying to get big. So,
Is he? He's packing on the weight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're good kids. I used to see them fighting each other all the time.
Well, they still do. Holy cow. Caden and Colton are at each other's throats all the time.
You can put some boxing gloves on that kid. Colton's got great footwork.
Mm-hmm.
I was really impressed with his footwork. Just moving around and just light on his feet and, switching his stance. Really unorthodox for.
I learned a lot about him just as a person this season, just because, he obviously wrestled behind his brother freshman year. He was a heavyweight and he couldn't beat his brother. So.
And he had was it like a ligament tear in his shoulder or something like that?
Tore his labrum. So coming into the season, it's like, the lead up to it was like, so what do you want to do? Do you want to wrestle? You want to wrestle JV heavyweight again, or do you want to try to lose a lot of weight, be a guy at 220?
Right.
So we were in there again. I was talking about my wife being a saint. Like me and Colton were every morning in there working out. He dropped 50 pounds. I think he was over 270 at one point. So he dropped 50 pounds to make 220, and that, a lot of people think maybe Colton's not the most hardworking kid, but you haven't seen him like that. That dedication to work that hard. You're getting 2-3 workouts in a day, and he was struggling to lose the weight a little bit. I finally was, you want my help a lot? He's like, yeah. Here's what you eat every meal. So he was eating chicken and veggies every meal. So he was very disciplined with it. Honestly, he did it the right way too, and with a hurt shoulder, like that was a lot.
Yeah, and that's a good topic to talk about too. I think is like, proper nutrition and weight cutting with wrestling. Like back in the day, it wasn't so great. I was a kid trying to grow. 14, 15, 16 years old trying to grow, but I played football, so I'd get big during football season, and I'd just drowned myself, and just not the right way, like really it was kind of on my own. You got to hit the scale, and no matter how you do it, whether you're sleeping in a snowmobile suit and plastics, and not eating, but like there's so much more education for kids these days, and for coaches. You guys have so much more access to information and resources to get kids on proper diets and, staying hydrated and training the right way. So
you still
I'm grateful
see it
for that.
though. You still see it both ways. That's the thing, because a lot of it's just that discipline and that, that mental toughness. So you still got kids that there's the Tyler Harpers that, he had to lose weight to make 106 this year. He probably 10 pounds. So he was doing eking nutrition and counting his macros and all these things. I don't even know what the heck they are. There's that kind of kid, I won't name names, but there's the kids that, I did the same thing the one year I cut weight in college. I'd balloon up on the weekends after I'd eat everything in my path, and then, oh crap,
why do I do this to myself?
I don't want the kids to listen to know how much weight I lost each week, but you're sucking down freaking 10 plus pounds, and that's not the right way to do it. You can have that one meal, that cheat meal, but it's like when you balloon up all weekend and then you come in to just, at some point you come to practice just to lose weight and you're not worried about getting better.
Right. So right.
You still see it all the time, even with all that stuff. Like this is going to be the really disciplined kid that takes advantage of that. But then the other kids, again, they're high school kids, so it's hard for them to not be high school kids. So you still see a lot of them doing it like that, balloon up and then sucking down that weight the wrong way to hydrate themselves.
Yeah. Well, Norwalk wrestlers, put it on your notebook.
Yeah. There's a certain one who knows who you are.
You know who you are.
Yeah.
So we talked about Maddox and what do you think about him going to play football? You're an Iowa fan. You got the shirt on. You got Herky up top.
I love my Hawks. About the only football I watch is Iowa football. So we actually talked about the other day. Maddox came to open mat last Sunday. I was just, what are you doing here? You bored? He's like, yeah, I just want to talk and hang out. Like, okay. I'm like, how are you feeling about, because he's going to move up right after his grad party. So his grad party's on Saturday.
Oh, wow.
He's going Monday. So I think that's like June 9th or something. So he's not here much longer.
Wow.
It's like, how you feeling and stuff, like, being away from home, going to play D1 ball. And he's nervous, but it's the same thing. I told him, like, the thing I'm most confident with you is like you thrive when you're pushed, and
Yeah.
I've
And they're
got
going to
see
push him.
that. Yes, they are.
He's
Yes,
he's a big kid, but he's back on the, low on the
Oh, yeah.
totem pole,
He's got everything to prove.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's going to be great to see what that accelerates him into.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be like a rocket ship, I bet.
Yeah.
Speaking of Hawkeyes, I'm going to be having Mickey Griffith on here.
Nice.
So I'm excited about having him on here and figuring out what's going on with him. So do you think is Maddox? I don't know much about his football career, but is it looking like he's gonna move into a position where he plays a lot?
He told me. I mean,
I know that's all dependent.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he's ready right away. Type. I think you give that kid a year in Iowa weight room, he's gonna be
scary dude.
Individual, and I think that's what they're probably looking for.
He's gonna put them paws on somebody.
Oh my gosh. I think they got a lot of D-line coming back, but I mean, you never know. Like, he could just show up and be an animal right away, and he's got a lot of natural ability on top of it. So
yeah,
who knows? I could see them. What I see from them is a really good year of training and everything. And then he'll be the dog we know he is.
So we talked about Maddox and Tyler Harper. So we're doing a documentary with Harper. I'm excited about it. Like, it's so hard for me right now because I have to like finish it, right? So it's like the waiting period of coming into next season and finishing up in some interviews with his parents and stuff. But man, it's like I want to like cut it loose, like, and it's too early to cut a trailer on it, but it's going really well. I'm very excited about that as a project. Tyler's a really quiet kid, so it's kind of hard to get him into it, but I think his story is amazing, and I don't know if I shared with you about like kind of how I picked Tyler to start with. So it happened. I had a dream, and the dream was like kind of like all this. Like, we're just sitting here, and I'm interacting with the Norwalk wrestling kids and the team, and so Tyler's name was in my mind, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? It was when we had the duels over at Valley, the day Asaya was not feeling well.
Yeah.
Right. So I went up there, I got into the gym, and I walked up to Dustin, and I was like, hey, I have this idea. What do you think about it? And he's like, yeah, maybe. And we'll see what Tyler, he's kind of
That's
shy,
the biggest question.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, but we're game. Let's continue to talk about it. I said, thanks. And then we moved on. And then, Asaya was not feeling well, and I'm not used to seeing that out of him, and so I jumped down there, and you guys let me have a word with him. But when I was sitting there, I like heard Tyler's voice. I'm not even joking with you. Like, I heard his voice in my ear, and I looked over, and Tyler was sitting over in the corner. He was praying for Asaya.
I did not know that.
And I walked up on him and I grabbed his shoulder. I didn't mean to disrupt him, but like I said, I can hear you. And he just looked at me so shocked, and I just knew that was something I had to do, that his story is going to, regardless of how the documentary turns out and like the fulfillment of this thing, he did something really amazing this year. And like, I'm so blessed to just be a part of like his experience, like being able to see his experience, not, just, even from the stands. He's such a cool kid.
He's a special young man.
Yeah. And his family's great. And, I hope that he accomplishes every goal that he goes after. So
that's why it was, that moment at the state tournament. I mean, the moment.
Yeah.
Like, again, you want all your kids to have success and everything, but with Tyler, I mean, he's just such a good kid, and he almost, you don't want to say someone deserves it, but if he deserved a moment like that.
Yeah.
Where things fell in place for him, and so it was
he
so
did
cool.
it for all of us.
Yeah.
All of us that fell short on those moments,
heck yes.
He did. He gave us that peace.
And I can't wait to have, I don't know how long I'm going to coach, but every year when we come into district time or every meet, all these kids, oh man, we're wrestling Southeast Polk, the number one. They're the number one ranked kid. Like, you know what? I know a kid who got beat 4 times by a kid that year, pinned in the first period. Kid was ranked 3rd in the country. You know what he did? Pinned him in 18 seconds.
Yeah. So like, see what I was saying? It's like this it's like this cycle, you know, like you had it, I had it, and then, you know, Pearson had it. You know, it happened to him, you know. So yeah, it was good to see that. And you know, the thing, I've watched it. Obviously, I'm editing. I'm in post production, so I'm like editing, and I know, like, I've heard your interview like 1,000 times, you know, over, and like I've seen Tyler's match against Pierce and against Pearson like several times.
Yeah.
And like when he got the fall, even when the match started, it was just like meant to be. It was like, even like his reaction when he won. Yeah, I know he did the old arm out thing, but like it still looked like he was already doing it in his mind. You know what I mean?
He had to. I mean, to get it done, you have to believe it. Like, it sounds so corny, but there was a lot of matches I wrestled with in the back of my head. Like, I don't think I can beat this kid.
Yeah.
You got to find it.
Yeah.
He
nailed it.
Talked about it a lot. Like, I mean, talk about that move he has, you know, and like, it's like, we're going to use it when it counts.
Yeah.
Use that move when it counts. Use it when it counts. And he waited.
It's gonna be a powerful story. I can't wait to share it with everybody. Yeah. It's just like, I wish I could do it now and just cut it loose. But it's a good story, and I think it's gonna tell not just his story, but the Norwalk team story. So I'm excited about it.
It'll be awesome. I know he's kind of that nervous kid, but
I would be
I'm
too.
Sure he appreciates it.
I'd be too. I'd be nervous about it too. Yeah. It's always hard, like looking at yourself or remembering what you said and seeing yourself on TV type thing. So, but you know, it's everybody's authentic, and I think that's the genuineness of the documentary. So I'm excited about releasing it soon. So another thing we want to talk about is as being the head coach at Norwalk, it's just like when you move into a season, you're coming into this next season, like what is some strategies that you use and some of your philosophies that you communicate with your team, and some goal setting stuff that are thinking about for this next upcoming season?
You know, to be honest with you, I'm still trying to find exactly what I want from that. You know, I mean, I'm a young head coach, and I haven't been doing it for that long, and nothing's perfect. You know, my first year I had them write your goals on this note card and hang it up somewhere you can see it. And I made everybody do it, you know, and I felt like it was forced, you know, and it's part of that culture thing. Like, I mean, I don't really want to, you know, I'm going to put them in to be a state champion. Do you really want to be a state champion? Is that really your goal?
Right.
So this year I told everybody, just kind of think about goals. I don't need to, you know, you can write it on a note card, you can hang it up, or you can just have it in your mind. You can write it at home. I don't care. I want you to do something with it. So I don't know if that's what I liked either, because I almost want to see him too, and I'm curious, and I'm still trying to find that middle ground with it. I'd talk to people a lot about what they do, so I got some things in mind, but I'm not exactly sure yet. So I'm learning. I'd like to learn from other people what they do. So.
Sure. Well, one of the strategies you said that, and I've seen this out of you already several times, several examples of it, is that you're not like an egotistical coach. You know, like you're spreading the knowledge out to you're allowing your other coaches to be major parts of the team. And it showed the example, like we were talking about the state finals, right? Yeah. Like you didn't sit in the corner for Tyler, you know, and some people might be shocked by that, but I seen that. I seen you better. I seen you better in that way. And I think that's how you coach anyways. You got to give your other coaches or your other lieutenants, you know, you got to give them space to shine and connect with other kids too. 'Cause not every person's going to connect with each person. You know, you got a big room with a lot of people. So
at the end of the day, it's like, I mean, these guys, I mean, they know, everybody who's coaching, they know what they're saying. You know, I don't know any more than the next guy, you know, so it's like, maybe that's part of it. What helps with the ego thing is I wasn't some big badass that won 3 state championships.
Sure.
Maybe it's easy for me to not be like that, but I think everybody needs to just kind of be like that anyway. Know when to back off, when let someone else kind of take over, because everybody's got good ideas. Everybody's got good coaching. So
Right. How's the support of the school been? I mean, obviously you guys got a new wrestling room. That's pretty awesome. But like, how other than that, like how does the school have feedback with you and help you try to grow it as well?
I've never had problems with anything. I mean, we got a new AD this year with Josh Toby, and he's very much on the wrestling wrestling train. So whatever I ask from him, I mean, that's the first thing. He's like, hey, you want to host districts this year? Like, heck yeah, let's go. So he pushed for that, and we're gonna host a dual tournament next year in our home gym. So he's been helping me find schools with that, and we got Ankeny Centennial and Knoxville so far, but we just started. It's hard to get teams because everybody signs contracts so quick for the next meet. But
sure.
So I mean, nothing but support, honestly, with it. And I mean, just with the day you were filming, with Tyler and Maddox, their little celebration thing. I mean, it's just stuff like that. That's the cool thing about Norwalk. It's a really supportive community with athletics. So I mean, that was like the first time I coached at Norwalk. The first home duel meet, I was like in shock with how many people were there. Like, man, I think it was like 20 people at Solon when I'd wrestle, but no, it's packed house. So there's a lot of support there, and a lot of alumni support. It's cool having the Thompson brothers, longtime Norwalk guys on staff, because not that those alumni wouldn't be there to support, but obviously with those guys, knowing them and being friends with those guys, it's easier to get those guys around. So
yeah. What do you think the difference between those two are? Because they look pretty. I can tell them apart. I've known them for a long time. I can tell them apart pretty good.
If they were in the room right now, I like to make Ryan's the more athletic one. Is what I like to say. But, Eric's just a dog, man. He's in there. He's looking like an 85-year-old man, but he's got his double knee pads on and everything. But he'll go in there and he scraps every practice.
Still scraps, yeah,
every day.
Yeah, I always ask Asaya, like, I was like, coaches in there getting it. They better be in there getting it.
Every day Eric's in there doing it. And
good.
Ryan's just, I can't say enough good things about those two on and off the mat. Like, they're guys I looked up to as fathers, how they are around their kids and everything. And I'm very thankful to have them on staff.
Yeah.
I really, every time I try to talk about them, I have all these things I want to say. Like at the banquet my first year, like, I'm not a big crier, I'm not a big emotional guy. So I went to go talk about them. I got emotional. I was like, holy cow, what is going on? I was a little embarrassed, but like, I couldn't find the exact words. And even this year, I think I started around them and I'm doing it again. But
yeah, I
really can't say enough good things about them.
Yeah.
So
they're leaving a great legacy here in Norwalk, and I've coached with them at the youth program. They're fun. They're technical too. I like that they're like they have a good coaching rhythm. They're like
yes,
they want to keep the room going. And I think that's important, because sometimes the room can get dead and then kids are looking around like, what do we do? That they got a good rhythm about them. So talk about kids' goals, but like, what is, do you have any goals specifically that you have
Always.
for yourself?
Always. I want to get this program consistently in the top 10. It's hard in 3A. It's hard.
Yeah.
In state duels, I want it to be not a once every, I actually don't know the history of how many times we'd been there. It might have been the first time we'd been there a couple of years ago, but I want that to be a thing where it's consistent. And again, it's really hard. And it was like my wife asked me, I was worn out yesterday after coaching all day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not an in shape coaching shape, I should say, but I was worn out. I had a headache and whatever. My wife's like, well, it's like something you needed to do to be there. Like, if I want to be competitive, yeah, you better be there. You better be getting kids there. It's because 3A is tough. It's so tough. So it's like, what I got to do a lot to try to make that happen. So again, thankful for her to let me do that. But you got to take your kids to off-season wrestling. Like, and we could have done freestyle stuff in our own room or whatever, but the kids they're comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
You got to find a way to get them uncomfortable.
That's true. People get comfortable in training environments. That's hard. It's hard to break. You got to get them out and doing tournaments. You got to get them competing against other kids. Because I see that often in my world too with jiu-jitsu. Is they when they run into a match and the kid's going hard on them and they're not used to that because they've been kind of like training with me and you are training the same thing. So I know your single leg, my double, like, and then we kind of give each other space a little bit to move, but kids that are trying to tear your head off aren't going to give you that space. So
that's why I beg our kids, because we go to Moen Academy twice a week, and I beg our kids, go wrestle someone you don't know.
I tell Asai that. I'm like, who? Because you know me, I'm checking in with them. I'm like, what was practice like? And I was like, who'd you work with? He's like, Maddox. I'm like, look.
Hey,
I was like,
he's honest with you.
oh, he knows me.
I'm on
I
him
know.
all
I
the
know
time
my
about
kid.
it.
You know, I was like, look, you got to go wrestle. That's why you're at that academy.
Mm-hmm.
You can wrestle Maddox at season next year. You need to go
Yes.
wrestle the hardest kid you can get in there with.
So that was, that Moen those practices have been great for us to break that being comfortable, because he pushes them hard, and
Yeah.
right now that room's just
TJ's
packed.
old school like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's like 100 kids in that room now too, so they're working hard.
That's a cool room.
Mm-hmm.
It's like vintage.
I know.
It is super vintage in there. I love that. I love that room. How'd you guys get linked up with TJ?
Honestly, I knew coming into that first off season, like I want to take our kids somewhere to a club to get uncomfortable, and I was like figuring out the ways how I'm gonna do it. How am I gonna get kids there? How am I gonna make sure everybody can afford it and all that stuff? But honestly, just Dominic Tigner, and I knew he trained out there, so I always asked him. Dom was a kid I talked to all the time, so he'd always tell me about tough practices and tough practice partners and how good of coaches they are and everything. So honestly, it started with Dominic. So, and I knew Scott Turner helped out a little bit with their youth program. So I got TJ's number from him or whatever. So I texted TJ and just said, hey, I want to try to get a bunch of kids there. Like, what do you think? And, we talked about it, and clubs are money. So I was like, maybe that might be tough. And, then that first state tournament was just not what I wanted for us as, my first year head coach. Maddox getting third, and, three. I want a lot more for our kids. I want more for me as a winning I want to win. To be honest with you, I want to win.
Yeah.
But also for those kids, I want them to reach those goals. I want everything. Not everybody's gonna be able to be a state champ, but I want more of those moments where, the Tyler pinning a kid, Maddox win a state title. Kids doing good things, and that's only going to happen by finding the right coaches. So I was text back with TJ, and I'm like, I don't know if it'll happen. But then that state tournament didn't go the way I wanted. I texted him that night, like, all right, I'm going to find a way to make this happen. Let's go. So he was like, heck yeah, let's go. And the good thing about him was like, there's other clubs out there that like, what's your accolades before you come into my room?
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a thing. He was just like, you can bring whoever, so as long as they work hard. So we take thankful of the Stolo family, we take a bus, their little tailgating bus up there, so we can fit 12 kids in there, and then normally another, Tyler will drive or Dominic will drive, because we got 15, 20 kids going, so which is really good numbers.
So awesome. Like once wrestlers get through high school, they get through college, and let's say they're not good enough to go to the Olympics or Olympic trials or whatnot. Where do the wrestlers go, right? So they're going into like mixed martial arts, right? What are your thoughts on like having, because even Gable Stevenson, he showed up in WWE, because he's like, that's the pay, and I know that there's a lot of stuff going on with like college. What is that acronym, or the
NIL?
NIL.
Yeah.
What do you think? What are your thoughts about the NIL?
I think it's good to keep like you talk about Gable. Like, man, I don't have anything affiliated with Gable Stevenson, but like, what a waste for him to go to WWE. Like, I know people love their WWE, but it's like, he's such a talent. He could do whatever he wants to in competitive sports. But I mean, it's good to keep people around with that, that NIL, but it's also, I don't know, I'm hearing bad things about it also. I mean, it's
sure.
like,
But that's what people want is money, right? Like, like Henry Cejudo, right? He just fought yesterday. He took an L.
Yes, he did.
Right. But like, even for him,
Division III wrestler.
Division III, and then like, and he got taken down. He got taken down a couple times.
Oh yeah.
So, but that's the thing with him though, like he went to the Olympics, and like, what do you do? Like,
I'm
it's like
kind
of
podcast too right now.
Oh yeah.
The 6-piece episode on him. Pretty cool story.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not a big fan of the the NIL thing. What other options would you like to see wrestlers kind of move into?
I mean, I like it. Like I hear about like my old football coach, his son plays quarterback at North Dakota State. He had a deal with a mattress company, and he made a little bit of money and they like paid his rent for the year. Like that's cool stuff right there. But it's like,
and he got the free mattress.
yeah, I'm sure he did. But it's like you see it.
I can hook you up. I know somebody.
I might need one. I got a bad back, so I could. But now I'm seeing it like kids are going other places because of that.
Sure.
You leave this place to go because I can make all this money doing that. But I mean, I guess you see that either way. So I don't have the.
Well,
right
what
answer.
else? What else can they do? I mean, there's not like a professional wrestling league, is there? There's not like besides like.
So especially for wrestling, I think it's a good outlet because they're also. I mean, you're seeing some stuff on Twitter about some of these high-profile guys that are transferring schools, getting some big money bags thrown at them. But for the most part, it's not going to be like football where it's just crazy money all the time being thrown around. So I think it's good for wrestling, but for football, it's I've heard it's kind of tearing things apart a little bit.
Yeah, I always try to think like what I try to, because I'm a creative person. I'm always trying to like think of ideas about what goes on beyond that. And like we've seen like crossovers with like Bo Nickel, right? Like he did a jiu-jitsu match. I think he's done 2 jiu-jitsu matches now against Gordon Ryan, which is like the GOAT for no-gi grappling. And it was just like, it almost looks like a farce, it's like it's not even, you don't even see the wrestling. So it's like, I didn't want to see that, because it wasn't even entertaining. It was like Gordon Ryan could have done anything he wanted to him at any time, and like, but he's such a high level wrestler. It's like, but I don't want to see that. Nobody wants to see that. So like, but he's doing well in the UFC.
Yes, he is.
So
you're seeing so many of those wrestlers go MMA route now.
Yeah, you heard a couple at the NCAA finals. They were, during their interviews mentioned it.
RBY, I think, is going, and Starachi from Penn State. You're seeing a lot of those Penn State guys going because Bo Nickel just opened up a center. I think it's on Penn State's campus, a training facility. So it's AKA, but they open another gym out there.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to see a lot of those guys do that. So
I mean, that's good. I like mixed martial arts. I mean, I fought mixed martial arts, so I like to see that. But I also like to I like wrestling so much, that I'd like to maybe just, what if they had a professional league, like,
but
where's the money at,
exactly. They used to. They had one back in the day. I can't remember what it was.
I mean,
called.
Dana White's doing like slap contests. I mean, we could like have we could pay wrestlers to do it.
I just read that they got a new deal for that, and it's like bigger than any UFC deal he's ever. So, oh my gosh, but yeah.
I mean,
not a lot of
when I wrestled in Germany, they had the people that we wrestled against were paid. They were like professional wrestlers, and I was like, I always found that confusing as like why. I mean, I wasn't expecting to get paid. I was on an all-user team, so like I was in the military. Yeah. I was already getting paid, but like that would be nice to see that here,
Just need that love, like Iran and Russia. I mean, I know those guys are freaking legends out there. Those guys are celebrities, but it's just not. It's not where we're at. Like I just saw, like the NCAA finals, like the viewership was like the lowest it's ever been this year, which is crazy because I feel like
because people want to see people get punched in the face. Yeah. They want to see blood.
Yeah, or smacked in the face.
Or smacked in the.
Oh, man, that's brutal.
Yeah, it's so much talent. Like we talk about wrestling being the hardest sport, from 5 on into high school. It's like it's hard. You get beat up. It's tough on you physically, but it's tough on you mentally, and like the incentive at the end is just to be like, good job, or we got these memories. Be nice to see people be able to like somebody invest into this thing and like get wrestling more awareness, like it is here in Iowa, and importance here because it is entertaining. I like if wrestling, people in the UFC don't like wrestling, seeing it because they want to see each other punch each other. But like when you get guys that are really good, it's highly entertaining to watch, and I'd like to see some of those guys get paid for that too, and be able to continue to do it, and like have people that they can't win gold medals in the Olympics have an alternate league that they can move into out of college and be able to keep doing what they love to do.
Yeah, be able to live a comfortable lifestyle
Sure.
with doing that. That's why it's tough right now. Those
Yeah.
guys that aren't the best, like, how long can you really do that? Like,
Right.
you're not, so it's tough. Wrestling's tough, man.
Wrestling is
Wrestlers
tough.
it's the least pretty sport, I'll say. So
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe thought it was a uniform thing.
Yeah.
Thought maybe it's not attractive because of singlets.
Mhm.
And then they kind of went to the no-gi style rash guard with board shorts.
Yep.
That didn't really go over so well either.
I don't
So
know. It's the closest thing to them punching each other,
Yeah.
obviously, besides the slapping.
yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
clubbing. Those clubs look pretty
Yeah.
pretty
I
legit
think
sometimes.
Liam McLaughlin hit me with one.
Yeah, he
today.
clubbed me
Pretty
today,
good.
too.
Yeah, he's got a little club to him. But, yeah. I don't know though. Either way, wrestling it rewards you. It makes you a better person. So it
Yes, sir.
helps you overcome anything.
Yeah. Well, Jake Brown, I appreciate you.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing you again this season and your team coming out and representing for our town, our community. We're going to pack the house. We'll get some good videos made, so it'll be a little bit more entertaining for everybody. And I appreciate you coming and stopping and hanging out with me in the basement and sharing your story with everybody.
Yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks
you.
for having me.